So we're holding Halacha Taaruvot, Siman of Hay. We're going to be reviewing Siman Hay through Zayin, going over some of the points, some of the concepts, and the words of the Ramah regarding the difference between a blia in a keli versus a blia in a devar machol, in a piece of food. As you can see, the Shach and Taz attempt to explain the difference. Why should it be that a plita coming out from a keli will answer a food that is sitting on it, as opposed to a plita coming from a dover balua in a maichol? After all, they're both blias, they're both considered balua, but obviously somehow the blia of a or in a keli is different than the blia in a devar maichol.
A piece in this balua.
Right, that's the question. That's the question over here. That's the question over here. Is why a keli would be more chomer than an isur balua.
It is an isur balua.
It is, exactly. Mm-hmm. Right.
But if the bolea is a keli, stricter, the bolea is if the one that absorbed.
So the Mefarshim explained that the blia in a keli is stronger. It is able to travel. It is able to affect the food that's being placed on it with more ease than an isur that is bolua into some other food versus the keli. That's the only explanation given. Somehow, a keli is able to affect it more. It's not. It's not a real isur.
Now I have a complication.
Yes.
What if you have a piece of fat, and that piece of meat is now cooking on it? Do we say in the reverse also? Not only if the keli was bolea, the isur, it will give off completely, but often keli that is absorbing an isur balua, will it also absorb as? Are we as strict with this absorption also?
That's the Shach speaks about that. That will have to leave for another time.
Okay.
But your example is as follows. The example is, let's say you used a meat spoon or fork to mix rice that had absorbed the milk. Okay, so the rice, in a sense, has an isur balua. Okay.
Not yet.
The rice is Melicha rice.
Yeah, so the rice is milk.
Right. But some say it. Here we're talking about the other way around. Well, it's similar actually. We're talking about a keli, okay, a spoon or a fork that has a blia, okay, and here you have rice that has a blia. Some say, however, that anything that is called dover habolul mixture, like rice, it's not an isur balua. In other words, it's not a tam balua, it's the real thing. It's milk. So that rice will be able to absorb or become fleshik or become treif or whatever from that spoon.
Okay, that I'm not surprised. But in the reverse direction, it will be comforting because of the milk absorbs the travel from the rice into the...
Right. So that's what we will see. That there's quite a few scenarios over here, if they affect each other or not. And does it make a difference if one is shaman or not? There's just so much. I didn't want to fit it all in.
Okay, but just my original question was, we are machmir in that absorbed in it, that a header that is cooking in it, not cooking, that's roasting it without water, without liquid, without shuman, nevertheless that header is as though it had cooked another piece of meat.
Right.
Right? So my question was, if that piece of meat cooking in the pot, it's the one that had the isur balua. Do we say in the reverse direction that the pot, because it's a pot and not another meat, even though it's just roasting and not cooking, and even though there's no fat, but the pot will absorb as powerfully as it gives off?
Yeah, that's you're right. Yeah, that's yes.
Or maybe the pot in the previous is the expression.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's hot because of the heat of previous.
Right. Yeah. What I want to do is that's what I want to leave for Thursday. There's quite a few chilukim between the various scenarios, one from the other, with shuman, without shuman. Where is the shuman? And because it's a little bit too much to handle at once, we're going to leave it a little bit for another time. But right now, it's important that just we understand the concepts of piapua, how tzli works, and why the mechaber, which we haven't gotten, and we'll spend just a couple minutes on that. What is the mechaber? Well, the mechaber takes it from the Torah, but how comes he goes along with it? What's the svara behind that? Even if the heter is the shaman, it will fatten up the Isser and have it go back and make the heter Asur. That's what we have to understand. So what I just want to do right now is just cover three klalim, three ideas, which will help us understand Paris for the next year. There's a famous rule that has been covered before, and you may have heard it already, that ein haneser yochol leser ela b'mokom sheha'isu be'asmo yochol leilech sham. Right? Yeah. Right. The ne'asar, that which has become asur, cannot in itself make something more asur. B'mokom sheha'isu be'asmo couldn't go. The isur itself could not go only so far. It can go kedei netila, let's say, kedei klipa, whatever. It can only go so far. That which has become asur cannot now in turn asur more than what it has become asur with. In other words, what made it asur made it only asur to some point, and that's it. It cannot now become in any way more powerful as a result and take that Isser even further.
So in other words, the properties of the Isser, how forceful a heter can become Asr, and not the properties of the heter that was Bolea the Isser.
Right. Now, this rule is seen in various situations, but where is it really taken from? A Toises, and the Rashba brings it down to. What's very interesting in the Toises and the Rashba is the fact that when something becomes Asr Kedei Klipa, why don't we say that the next piece of meat right adjacent to it becomes Asr Kedei Klipa? You got something Kedei Netila, let it go on. The Netila will answer the next one. Right? So the Toises and the Rashba say, because the original Isser only has so much koyach, that when they, Chachamim, determined that it asks Kedei Klipa, Kedei Netila, that's it. Nothing more than that. It cannot go beyond that point. And from that we infer this klal, that if the Isser can only go so far, then Ne'asar cannot in any way amplify it. Just like now, this Klipa is a Ne'asar. Right? Can it go more? No. It can't. It can only go to where it went. The Ran, however, I saw, says something very interesting, which is a completely different idea. So you know why it can't go beyond that point? Because there's no Hanan by Klipa and Netila. You understand?
Yeah, sure.
That piece, that Klipa or that Netila is not Hanan, that it will answer that which is beyond it. Kedei Netila, Kedei Klipa, that's where it remains. There's no Hanan by Klipa and Netila. Klipa and Netila is Klipa and Netila. There's no Hanan for that. Which is very interesting, by the way, for another reason. I just thought about it. There's a big machloites on Basar b'cholov that applies to this. Because what did we just say real quickly? We said real quickly that in Sif Zayin, we talked about an Isur Machmas Atzmoy versus Balua. What's an example of Isur Machmas Atzmoy? Nevela or Basar b'cholov. Basar b'cholov is an Isur Machmas Atzmoy. I thought it's an Isur Balua. It's meat that has absorbed milk.
Yeah, but the milk isn't Isur, so it has to be a combination of the two. I said the meat is the Isur.
Now, what we are used to is what Ilan just said. We are used to understanding it that way. Basar is mutter, Chalav is mutter. When they come together, they become a new entity called Basar b'Chalav. Right. The real classical textbook example of Hanan.
And this is what Masatzmo, because new entity.
Now, what if you can take out the milk, remove the milk from that piece of meat? What do we say? We hold the maskana that ef shalesoichte.
Right. If it was metana, for example.
Right. We hold that ef shalesoichte means that you cannot remove the milk, or you cannot possibly know that you've removed all the milk, and that's why the piece of meat will always remain asur once it has become asur. That piece of meat that was Hanan, that became asur, that became completely asur, even if it fell later on into another part of 100 times against it, maybe all the Isser came out. No, we don't say Yef Shulasoif. That's how we hold. But that's what we hold does not necessarily mean it's not possible. If you hold that it is possible to remove the milk, then according to some, I think Rishonim, I have to look it up again, who says what. If you somehow are able to remove the milk from the meat, then this should only be an Isur Bulua, if anything. If the meat that has milk touched another piece of meat, it should have the same status or same halacha as an Isur Bulua. Because what did we just say? There's a big difference between an Isur Bulua and an Isur Machmas Atzmai. Isur Bulua can't go so far. Only Isur Machmas Atzmai can go Kedei Natila. Right? Isur Bulua will not go.
But according to this then, if that meat that, according to us,
if it's
was cooked with potatoes,
right.
So what I'm worried about is the milk gonna separate itself from the meat and affect the potato. But since potatoes and milk is not a problem, so l'choira, it shouldn't usher the potatoes at all. Only if I hold that it's a new entity that is an Isser Machmas Atzmo, this Isser Machmas Atzmo is going to usher the potatoes because they're not going to taste of Hanan.
Yeah.
But if I say that it's an Isser Malua, then the potatoes should be okay. The milk doesn't usher potatoes. The meat is only something that contains an Isser, but it's not an Isser Machmas Atzmo. So I should be able to eat the potatoes again, according to this opinion.
Yeah, but exactly. But here we're talking about sli only, right? So let's not get mixed up with potatoes and a whole stew where everything is being cooked together. We're strictly talking about sli, and that's where it makes a difference. Because what do you have by sli? You have two pieces of meat, and you have one meat absorbing the blias of the other meat. So the question is it absorbing only blias of meat, or is it absorbing blias of basar and chalav? So if you say basar b'chalav for this purpose, there's a difference between an isur balua and an isur machmas atzmai.
But there is the difference between machmas atzmai applies in quite as much as.
No, we're talking about sli right now.
It applies in the same way though.
No. Remember, Mechaber just said that if it's an isur machmas atzmai, it asks kedei netila, not if it's an isur balua. Right. The isur balua doesn't travel unless it's an isur balua which is fat.
It doesn't
at all. Yeah.
I thought you were talking about Mikvaot.
Right. Right, that's Sif Zayin. And his example was an Basar B'chalav. So the Meforshim speak about it, and hopefully we'll take it apart a little bit more on Thursday. Very interesting scenario, because shatnez, I saw an example with shatnez. You have a strand of wool or linen in a garment of wool, but it's at the corner of the garment, and you cut away that piece. The rest of the beged is kosher, right? In a sense, right? So here, somehow, if you can separate the two, the challah from the basar, then the meat, what blias is the meat going to get over here? It's going to get blias of basar, not of chalav. Not of basar and chalav, just basar. Why shouldn't we say that this is an isur balua? Now, the Mechaber says it's an isur machmas atzmai. Fine. But there are others who would say that it's an isur balua for purposes of tzli. That all it is getting is a blia from a basar. Now, it's not getting a blia from the chalav. It's just not. Now, we call it a piece of meat that is now basar b'chalav. So it's a different way of looking at it. No, the Mechaber says it's an isur machmas atzmai. Exactly. That's what Mechaber says. But others say that no, this may be called an isur balua, because in the reality is that's all it's getting here is a blia from the meat, and therefore, there's no problem here. If the meat is okay, it didn't get any of the chalav, then why should it be a problem? But we'll talk about it. But this has to do with this klal, okay? That the enanesa yochel lesar further than where it itself could go.
But that klal also applies by cooking.
Well, obviously, by cooking, it would be a different. Sure. You can apply it in cooking too. Sure.
It does.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what we learned it in. We didn't mislead.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Real quickly, we have here the Mechaber quoting the Tur that the Shuman is mefatem the Isur. How does that happen? There's two possibilities. How does the Heter mefatem the Isur, and in turn the Isur answers the whole Heter?
This is a good question.
Yes.
That you just brought with the
Right.
of a chalav. So according to them, to these opinions,
Right.
if in the second part you have the combination of meat that already absorbed the milk, and the second part is the against the milk, so at least against the milk.
Yeah, but the pot is different. Here we're talking about sleeve, remember. It's a different.
I'm saying if they hold it, it's an Isser Balua.
No, only for this purposes.
Oh, they make a distinction.
They make a distinction.
So
Sure.
it's Isser Balua by cooking, and Isser Masma cooking.
Yeah.
Isser Balua by sleeve, and Isser Masma cooking.
Yeah, because over there, the way it functions is different than over here. Here we're talking about sli that it's only an aser kedei netila.
And I understand all
Okay.
that. But how can you say that basar b'challah is an isser mas atzmo
Right.
if you're going to if
No,
it's going to subsequently be cooked and it's an isser balua l'gabei tzli?
No.
You have to make your mind, one or the other.
The concept will still be the same everywhere.
Right.
Right, but
But
it
it
will
makes a difference.
it will make a difference
Also in
under the
cooking.
circumstances.
It will also make a difference in
Yeah,
cooking.
not exactly.
It will, a different difference.
A different difference.
But
Yeah,
there
of
is a
course,
difference.
of course. Yeah. So we'll talk about it next time. But just what's the explanation? What the svaras behind the words of the Torah? How does it work that the heter is mefatem, the iser, and then it goes back? So there's two explanations given. Either you hold chanan, in other words, the iser, the heter came into the iser, it becomes chanan, and then it goes back and it asers.
Shouldn't hold like that because
But for the Machaber wouldn't have a problem with it.
right.
Because we wouldn't say Chanan B'Shar Yisur.
Exactly.
The second spore appears to be more accepted by all Rishonim and Achronim. And that is that you have a little bit of the heter going into the Isser, and just that's the way it works. The little bit of the heter penetrating the Isser has the ability to take with it a little bit back into the heter. It has nothing to do with Chanan. It's a simple fact where the heter is able to travel it goes into the Isser and then takes with it along some of the Isser, and because it's fat in itself, it's able to travel.
But that would seem to take what we just said.
Exactly, yes. That's the big question of the Taz. He says, wait a minute, I have a problem with this. He has a lot of problems with it. He says, first of all, how is this different than the Isser Balua, in other words? Right? You follow? How is this different than the Isur Balua we just said? How could this fat go to here and then come back? If that's the case, then why is Isur Balua any different? So the Bach, there's a lot of Meforshim that speak about the difference. They all say there is a difference. You should know, they all say there is a difference. And that by an Isur Balua, it simply does not have the same strength. That's the basic explanation. An Isur Balua does not have the strength. The Taz, however, comes from a different angle to attack this. He says, wait a minute, logically it doesn't make sense. He says, because if the Isur is an Isur Balua, okay, listen to this. And where is the Isur Balua? The Isur Balua is in a piece of heter, right? And the heter is shomen. Our example of heter shomen is not the one that has the Isur Balua. You have heter,
right.
that is shomen, and you have another piece that is heter, but it has an Isur Balua.
But it's itself lean.
Now, itself it is lean, but the Isur is either shomen or lean too. Okay? Everybody agrees, based on the Mechaber, that if the Isur Balua is shomen itself, then it goes. Because at least the Isur Balua is shomen. The only question, the puzzle here was, heter is shomen, the Isur Balua is not shomen. It's kochush. So comes along this shomen, and takes over, and transforms the Isur into shomen, and then it goes back and makes the heter Isur. The Taz asks, but wait a minute, what would be the halacha if the piece of heter where the Isur is Balua, if that's shomen? Since the Isur Balua is kochush, even though it's absorbed in a heter shomen, it will not go because of ina nesa. Do you mean to tell me that this, which is even more difficult, that a heter, another heter, not even the heter that has the Isur Balua, another heter that is shomen, will be able to cause that Isur Balua in that other piece to come out? In other words, it is able to be fatim. Do you understand?
So
the Taz.
This is what a whole different. This is now
this is the Taz arguing logic. He says. He says logically it doesn't make sense that it should work like that. That's why he's very puzzled by this, and he wants to change the halacha, the way it is written in the Torah.
The Isur is not balua.
Yeah.
And it's
right.
And the heter is fatty. And now the fat from the heter travels to the Isur that is lean.
Right.
So now the fat from the heter has absorbed some lean Isur. And now the fat from the heter travels back to the heter. The Isur in the fat heter is Isur balua.
Yes.
And since this Isur balua not being fatty would not be able to affect the fatty heter,
Right.
So therefore the fat of the heter, now traveling back with an Isser Balua, should not affect the heter either. So you don't even need a lean Isser Balua in a lean heter that is being affected by a fatty heter. Because even a step before that, an Isser that is lean that wasn't even Balua in anything, if it touches something fatty, should not affect that fatty heter. Because of
No, but we said it does. No, but we said Isur Machmas Atzmo, it does. Whenever you have an Isur Machmas Atzmo...
I had a problem with that already.
Yeah, but that it's blias. You have blias. You have they're touching each other. You're going to have automatic... It'll make no difference. Even if they're lean, they're touching each other. They're hot. There's going to be a kedena tila. The fatty only makes a difference in the we answer the whole thing. Right. That's where it makes a difference. Fat.
But even when you have
without
an Isur Balua, if it's mifabeya, the whole heter will become asur because of its own fat.
Yes, that's a similar question.
My question is, with respect to the
that's
fat
a similar
of the heter,
question.
The Isur is only Balua.
No. The Isser is Machmas Atzmo, but you're saying you have a question.
The fat that returns.
You're asking a similar.
The fat of the heter that returns into the heter.
Right.
With respect to that fat, the Isser is only an Isser Balua in that.
Yeah, but that's why we explained that in the case of Isser Machmas Atzmo, what the heter is doing is actually transforming the Isser Machmas Atzmo into an Isser with fat. Somehow it changes it. Think about it. I mean, there's a lot of heat going on in something being roasted. If something is very fatty, it's going to make that which is not fatty too. Yeah.
So you're saying, and this making it fatty too is not in case of Isser Balua?
No. Now it's becoming an Isser, Machmas Atzmoi, fatty.
If so,
yes.
Then why don't you say the exact same with respect to the Isser Balua? The fat that came from the header was nivla in the header meat that has an Isser Balua. There that fat met the Isser Balua. Now the Isser Balua became a fatty Isser Balua. So if now the Isser Balua is a fatty Isser Balua, it can affect the header.
Right, that's one of the questions. That's exactly one of the questions
that would
here.
be against the Taz.
No, that's one of the questions, is that why the Mechaber, once we understand how it works, that the Heter Mefatim the Isser, then why should that be different? Exactly your question in the Seif Zayin, where we say that if it's an Isser Balua, it does not do it, unless the Isser Balua is fatty. Why shouldn't it do it? But we can leave this for another time.
Okay. Because you brought the Taz.
Yeah, right. But we'll go. I just wanted to introduce you to all the difficulties, all the issues over here. But we'll leave this another time.
Interesting.